Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm looking for your paper, your midterm paper, and I'm trying to find it here in the list of papers I have. I'm trying to find, well, I tell you what, the probably easiest way to find is go back to the cyber campus and then look under assignments and then go to the midterm paper and
Can I send you revised paper?
did you I mean you mean you sent me you want to send me a revised version?
Yeah.
Oh, you have another version? You want me to look at that one?
Yeah.
Okay, you can send it to me, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't. Okay, so yeah, send to me as an email attachment, and so I'll open up what you sent to me. And so if you sent to my Zoom account, my Gmail account, sorry, and I don't see it yet. So let me
I will send this on email.
okay, let me see if I can find it here. Let me I don't see it here. I don't see it popping up here. And did you send to my email Gmail account?
Yeah, I sent it right now.
Okay, I'm still waiting to get it here. I don't see it here. Yeah, it's not here yet. I don't see it.
Really?
So let me see if I can find your, you sent me the first draft, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find it here. I can't see it.
Gmail.
Okay, here I see it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me download it here. And let me save it and save as. Okay, so put it in the, okay. And okay, so let me share that screen with you. And let me go back to Zoom and go share screen and see, hopefully I'll be able to find that here. Is that it? Share. Okay, you can see it now. Okay. So Zinn described only the atrocities. Yeah, okay, so I mean, let me look how many words it is, and it's 540 words. So you use information, cite specific information from 3 different chapters of the Zinn book, from chapters 1 through 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. You do that. So page 31, okay, that's from chapter 1 or 2. This is from later chapter. And, you know, I'd have to go back and, okay, and this is from another chapter, okay. I just want to make sure, all right. So let's go through and read your paper here. Zinn described only the atrocities committed by the Puritans in this book, referring to them as it was put in, you know, listen, 600 brought down to hell that day. Okay, that's Flynn refuted that Indians accounted for most of the Fort Mystic attacks, while Puritans accounted for less than 15% of the fighting that attacked and burned Pequot's base. The atrocities against Pequot's Puritans and other tribes were ignored. In addition, Zinn devalued the fact the United States was half free, and the anti-slave movement that ended the 3,000-year-old system so soon that was not noticeable now. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's. Let me ask you a question. What do you think Zinn's been dead for 11 years. He died in 2010. How do you think Zinn would respond to Flynn's claim that, you know, that Zinn doesn't talk about the terrible things the Indians did? How do you think Zinn would respond? Well, I mean, it's so obvious. It's not obvious. He might respond and say, "Well, we already know. I mean, you Americans are taught from the time that they're little children about how Indians are savages. Savages. That's the term. Even in the Declaration of Independence, the Indians are referred to in the American Declaration of Independence as savages. That the King of England is instigating to attack the colonies. So, I mean, but you know, you never hear about or you don't encounter stories about the horrible things that the white people did in America. The only time you hear about the horrible things the white people did is about slavery. And then even about slavery, the white people fought the Civil War. And the white people fought other white people in the Civil War, and the North won, and the white people ended slavery. Yay! Good white people! Hooray for white people! So, you know, you never, and so Zinn says it's about time that we focus upon the horrible things that the people that founded and created the current system, that laid the foundation the current system did, to understand, for example, if you don't understand about these terrible things that white people and white rulers and white power did, how would you explain the fact that African-American people, Black people, are 12% of the population, yet they're 30%, yet they're 25% of the prison population. They're double the rate of the percent of their population. They're double that of the people that are in prison. So like over 2 million people are in American prisons. 25% of those people are Black, even though they're only 12% of the American population. If Hispanics are 15% of the population, yet again, 25% of the prison population is Hispanic. Indian population. The poorest place in America are these Indian reservations. You find incredibly high levels of alcohol abuse, drug abuse on these Indian reservations. The terrible problems of obesity and diabetes and life expectancy for Indian people, men on some of these places is about the same as it is in Somalia. And so you look at that, and if you don't know about the terrible things that were done systematically by white people against Africans, Indians, Hispanics, and others, what might you explain or understand why these people are poor, have higher rates of criminality, have higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse, have higher rates of dysfunction, have lower achievement in school, lower grades? What might be the reason for that? If you don't know about the history, about what was done to these people, if you don't know that, you're going to say, well, it's their fault. They're bad people. They're lazy. They're stupid. They're born dumb. You might talk like Adolf Hitler. It's in their genes. African people, they can't think as well as white people. It's their fault, that they don't want to work, that their culture is backward and stupid, and they still are under that culture. And that's why they were so weak when the Europeans arrived, because their culture is inferior and European culture is superior, including European religion and European beliefs. It is superior. And these people should become more like the white people. And if they act like white people, they'll do better. That's what you might think if you don't know and don't want to know about what was done to Indians and Blacks and Hispanic people when under the history of the United States from its founding by Europeans. And I think that's what Zinn's trying to explain, that basically, people are created by society. If somebody's a criminal, there might be some genetic factors that make them behave that way. But typically, if you look at the history of people that are criminals, that do bad things to other people, typically bad things happen to them. I mean, most criminals who do bad things, not all, but most, they had horrible lives. Somebody who abuses children, they were probably abused as a child by other adults. People that commit crimes and murders, they had horrible experiences with as children in growing up with their family or lack of family, and the systemic oppression of these people, their immiseration, their segregation, their abuse, their targeting, the mocking of them, the portrayal of them as being silly, backward, it just reproduces itself, because it's the easiest thing in the world for anybody to do is make a baby. Making babies is pretty much anybody can do it, from brilliant, smart people to criminals, dysfunctional people, alcoholic people. They can all make babies, and they will, because they're people. And so this legacies of abuse are transferred down from generation to generation to explain, if Black people are twice as likely to be in prison, then you have more children among Black people that are twice as likely to have horrible experiences as children that are going to make them mentally messed up. But you have to know about this history. But most Americans, they never learn about this, and so Zinn doesn't need to talk about the terrible things that Indians did to each other or to white people, because American children already know that from Hollywood, from films, from stereotypes. But they don't learn about the horrible things that Europeans did, and why they did it. And Zinn wants to explain why they did it, which, in terms of his Marxist theoretical lens framework, like the lens of this glass, right? His theoretical framework lens is Marxism. So Marxism is about conflict between different classes of people over economic resources, over the means of production. And Europe is so dominant today in European culture because it was most successful at developing the power off of economic capitalism, early capitalism, to dominate non-European people. And then it used its domination to get even richer from those exploited peoples, Africans, indigenous people, and to reinforce its domination and control. So that we just assume that, of course, European culture, the people that are exploited, they're not due any kind of reparations or justice. That they should be grateful that they're living in America, because this is what white supremacists say. You still have slavery in Africa. There's still slavery there. You can go see it. It's on YouTube. All sorts of. It's not. You don't have to go to Africa. You can go to Southeast Asia. They still enslave people to work in fishing boats off the coast of Thailand and Malaysia. It's still around, slavery. And Flynn makes that point that, okay, slavery's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and the United States, ended it. And they fought a war. They were willing to fight a war to end it, at least in the United States. I think Zinn makes a point. I can't find it in the book. He claims that America was the only country had to fight a civil war to end slavery. I don't know if that's really true. Brazil had slavery, but they didn't fight a civil war to end it. They officially ended it in the 1880s. And slavery was more important even there than it was in the United States to power that economy, because the Portuguese people, there's not a lot of Portuguese people. But so that might be how Flynn. So I mentioning the War of Independence was solicited. This test for horrible purpose of standing for slavery. Does Zinn make that statement? He does that on page 144, 141? Or does Zinn state that? Does Zinn write this?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Maybe is I will check it later.
Okay, because I don't know.
It can be a quotation.
And certainly, those defending the slave interest was important, but I don't know if Zinn actually says. If I'll check, but it's solely for the detestable and horrible purpose of extending. I don't know if he would say that was the only reason why they fought. They wanted there are other motivations as well. Like they wanted to expand out west, to take the land from the Indians, and the British wouldn't allow it. And so they had to break away from Britain in order to expand out west. I think they're also upset about the British I think British, because a lot of non-slave owning people were involved in the American Independence War, like, John Adams, John Adams, or others who did not own slaves that supported independence. And it wasn't because they wanted to, well, I don't know. I mean, they were making money off of that system, but it was the British themselves were making a lot of money off that system. I mean, the British didn't complain too much when the first slaves, they didn't complain when the first slaves were brought to North America from Africa, because, those colonies became a source of exports for British goods, right? So, but certainly slavery did expand as the United States expanded west. And so I think, you highlight here, and I know where you're going with this, because I've seen other people write this as well, that is America all about exploitation and colonialism and imperialism and racism? I mean, Flynn's, you mentioned it here, that Flynn puts in his critique Reagan's speech at the Brandenburg Gate, when this is in 1980, I think it was 1985, when after Mikhail Gorbachev had come to power. And I mean, I can try to look for it now, but I guess, we're running out of time. I'm sure it's probably on Wikipedia, where, Reagan calls upon Gorbachev, who came to power in 1985, who wants to reform the Soviet Union. And Ronald Reagan called upon Gorbachev to tear down the Berlin Wall. And Flynn puts Reagan's speech at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin in the same category as Washington's farewell speech, Lincoln's speech at Gettysburg, and Reagan's speech, that they all go together. And I think Flynn is claiming that basically the United States won the Cold War because of people like Ronald Reagan, who represented traditional, conservative, positive American exceptionalism theoretical framework that Flynn is defending. That Ronald Reagan, after the humiliations and setbacks of the United States, as a consequence of the mistakes of previous presidents, particularly Lyndon Johnson, the Democrats, and the setbacks in the 1970s, compounded with Jimmy Carter, who was president from 1977 to 1980, that those setbacks allowed communism to expand around the world, and including after Vietnam, into Africa and Angola, Mozambique, with the help of the Cuban army from Cuba, sent by Fidel Castro with the support of the Soviet Union. That communist parties came to power in the newly independent countries from the Portuguese Empire in Angola and Mozambique, and that the communists came to power in 1977 in Nicaragua under the Sandinista revolution with the help of Cuba, and the revolutionary Marxist forces expanded in El Salvador, in Guatemala, in North America, not far from the United States, and then of course America's CIA allied client regime in Iran, the Shah of Iran, was overthrown, and under Jimmy Carter, and then the Soviet Union invaded, and then of course the Islamists in Iran took hostage the American embassy people in the American embassy in Iran, and Carter could not get them released until Ronald Reagan became president, and then the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in December 1979, all happening under Democrats, Jimmy Carter, who's talking about human rights and talking about getting rid of the Cold War, not thinking about the communism as a problem. And the result was this tremendous setbacks, also economically and politically, because Richard Nixon was forced to resign because he was of his criminal behavior against his domestic opponents, as he's trying to fight and get out of Vietnam without looking humiliated. And he oversees the Watergate crimes, and has to resign. and then the wars in the Middle East caused the oil prices to go up and cause inflation in the United States, and the Iranian Revolution happens and disrupts the oil flow, and the Iran-Iraq war starts, causes more increases in oil prices, so inflation becomes really high in the United States. And Ronald Reagan motivates the American people by appealing to a traditional American conservative, positive, exceptionalist values, the American creed that we talked about in class, and mobilizes the American people, rebuilds the American military, stands up to the Soviet Union, supposedly, and then and finally Gorbachev comes to power in the Soviet Union in Ronald Reagan's second term in 1985. And Reagan goes to the Berlin Wall and says, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And then 6 years later, the Soviet Union's gone. Just 4 years later, the communist regimes collapse. Just a few years after his speech, the communist regimes collapse in Eastern Europe. The Berlin Wall collapses, comes down. And Ronald Reagan, according to Daniel Flynn, gets the credit for that. And the American nationalist conservative forces that opposed Zinn and the new left academics like Gar Alpovitz and Noam Chomsky and William Appleman Williams that Zinn represents is an example of. That Ronald Reagan and conservative traditional American values that made America great won the Cold War, saved the world, you, me, from this Russian version of Nazi Germany trying to conquer the world, saved the world for freedom in spite of Howard Zinn, teaching his students and the followers of Howard Zinn teaching their students that American history is about exploitation, is about racism, is about crimes, and you should be ashamed of America if you're a student because of what Zinn teaches you in that book, in his book. And I think that is, the point is the Cold War and its outcome is part of explaining why I think Flynn is outraged at Zinn and those college professors, because most of the resistance, not most, but the center of resistance to the Vietnam War started on American college campuses. It was American university professors and American students who took the lead in the anti-war movements and then making the other demands, young people who were in school making these demands to change America and change American foreign policy. And that's because that seems to be the big focus of Flynn. Yeah, sure, Howard Zinn wrote a book that he doesn't like, so what? But what Flynn wants to know, asks is, why is this book by Zinn the most popular book for teaching American history in America? Why are thousands of teachers and college professors making you, the students, read this book out of all the books available? What is about American universities and American professors that makes them hate America so much? You know why they hate America? Because they hate traditional American values. They hate this notion that the free market is good, that people get paid for the value they make in society, that traditional marriage is a good thing between a man and a woman, that they hate that. And American universities are filled with people that don't fit in to American society and resent that they are not respected enough as professors in American society. And so they train their students to, and they use their students to validate their own unusual unhappiness on behalf of, LGBTQ rights or socialism and other values that are not the values that explain why America is admired all over the world. I mean, why is this class that we're having right now in English, why is this class right now not in Japanese? Why is it not in Chinese? Why is it not in Russian? Why? Because America is positively exceptional. America is admired around the world as a major source of America's power. it's not just because of American military, American bombs, American technology. It's because you and so many other people admire America. And why do you admire America? You're not going to learn why people admire America and made America so influential to save the world from communism from reading the Zinn book. The Zinn book is not going to teach you why America is so powerful and influential. Why do people admire America? It teaches you to be ashamed of America. And so that's what Flynn emphasizes. There's no virtually little discussion of what America contributed to the world in terms of America's model as a model for the world that made it so many people around the world admire the United States. And now, and so despite Zinn and his followers attempting to undermine American national morale, we won the Cold War, and now we have other problems. We have other problems with Islamic militants and trying to overthrow the status quo around the world and threaten Israel as the only true democracy in the Middle East. And we have China now, and which is still ruled by the Chinese Communist Party that wants to expand its influence in the world. And if you love freedom, you're going to have to fight for it, because it doesn't just exist. It happens because people make it happen. And how is America going to continue to fight for and defend and model freedom in the world if people like Zinn and the followers of Zinn are using the Zinn textbook to teach American students that America is basically founded upon racism, exploitation, and colonialism. And that's what the Soviet Union said. That the Soviet Union said that capitalism is bad because capitalism and racism go together. We, the Soviet Union, we've solved the problem of racism through abolishing capitalism. And Zinn would say, of course, that's ridiculous, right? They didn't solve the problem of racism. You want any proof? Look what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs. Isn't that racism? So, or what they're doing to the Tibetans, the Tibetan people in Tibet. But if you're going to, America made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but clearly there's something really positively exceptional about America, and you don't get any sense of that from the Zinn book. And at the same time, we have all of these problems we're facing in the world that require American leadership and American opposition to evil. And that evil now is Islamic militancy and the Communist Party of China. Because it's the nature of communist totalitarianism that it must expand if it wants to survive. Just like the Soviet Union must expand if the Soviet Union was going to survive. And because Ronald Reagan contained the Soviet Union, America contained the Soviet Union under Ronald Reagan's leadership, the Soviet Union collapsed. That's the dominant view of Flynn and the people that support Trump. And of course, Zinn's response, because we're running out of time here, about whether or not is America really so exceptional. Zinn, like I said, Zinn died in 2010, so we don't know. But I wonder if Zinn would say, if he was alive today, he would say, well, look, the election of Donald Trump. You want any more evidence that there's some serious problems in America? This country, with all of its nuclear weapons, put that evil, sick man in power, Donald Trump. And he's still the dominant force in the Republican Party. He controls the Republican Party. How? I told you, I warned you, Zinn might say. So anyway, you have any questions? As I look through your paper here. Well, I guess, I'll look through the paper later, okay? Okay, so that's it for today then. I'll send you the link to the class, okay? I'll send you the link to this recording later this afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, Professor.